Today we will be covering SA 500 series as we had done the previous series. Let's quickly begin.
Let's revise SA 500, which is audit evidence. What do you mean by audit evidence? So audit evidence is something, the information which is used by the auditor in arriving at a conclusion on which the auditor's opinion is going to be based upon. Okay, so whatever information that the auditor is using to draw conclusions and to thereby form an opinion is known as the audit evidence. It includes both information which is obtained from the other sources as well as information which is contained in the accounting records underlying the financial statements. Now the auditor is going to design, perform the audit procedures which are appropriate in the circumstances for obtaining the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences. Sufficiency refers to the quantity which is affected by the assessment of risk of material misstatements and the quality, and appropriateness of audit evidence is a measure of quality, relevance and reliability in providing support for the conclusions. Now let's talk about the auditor's duties when an information to be used as an audit evidence. So information prepared by using the work of management's expert has to be evaluated by the auditor. The management's expert's competence, capabilities and objectivity has to be evaluated by the auditor. Like he will have to obtain the understanding of the work, evaluate the appropriateness of expert's work as an audit evidence for that relevant assertion. Information which is produced by the entity, in that case the auditor will have to obtain the audit evidence about the accuracy and the completeness of information, and he will have to evaluate whether the information is sufficiently precise and detailed for the auditor's purpose. Now, when we talk about the management expert, what do you mean by management expert? Management expert can be an individual also, or it can be an organization which possess the expertise in the field other than auditing or accounting, and whose work is used by the entity to assist them in the preparation of financial statements. Now let's talk about the evaluation of work of management's expert. So the auditor will have to evaluate the competency, capability and objectivity of the management's expert. Now what do you mean by competence? Competence relates to nature and the level of expertise. Capability refers to the ability to exercise that competence, and objectivity relates to the possible effects that bias, conflict of interest, influence of others may have on the professional or business objectivity of the management's expert. Now, what are the sources of information on competence, capability and objectivity? How will the auditor identify whether the management is competent enough, he has the capabilities, or he is objectively working? How will the auditor going to get all these things? For this, we have some sources. For example, the personal experience with the previous work, discussions with that expert, the discussions with others who are familiar with that expert's work, या फिर knowledge of that expert's qualification, membership of professional body, industry assistance, license to practice, etc. An auditor's expert published papers or the documents written by that experts, you can always go to that and refer to them. Okay, understanding that expert's work. How are you going to understand the expert's work? You are going to see the areas of speciality within the field of expertise, applicable professional or other standards and regulatory or legal requirements which he has to comply. Now then the assumptions and methods which he has used, their general acceptability within that expert's field, and the appropriateness for the financial reporting purposes, nature of internal and external data or information that management's expert uses, what information he is using, what type of data he is using, what is the nature of that particular data which he is processing or which he is using to draw out some assumptions, methods, etc. Now evaluating the appropriateness of expert work. When I talk about the appropriateness, you will see the relevance and reasonableness of that expert's findings or conclusions, how reasonable, how relevant they are, the conclusions and findings he is finding out. The consistency with the other audit evidences, whether they have been appropriately reflected in the financial statements, relevance and reasonableness of the assumptions and methods used, relevance, completeness and accuracy of the source data, because if the source data is not correct, not appropriate, then obviously बात है उसका conclusion भी गलत हो जाएगा, उसकी assumptions भी गलत हो जाएंगी. Now matters affecting the nature, timing and extent of auditors' procedures in case of information being produced using the work of management's expert. Now if you are using the work of management expert, then what will be the matters that will affect the nature, timing and extent of your audit procedures? Now, first of all, the nature and complexity of the matter to which the management expert relates. Second, the risk of material misstatement in the matter. Third, the availability of alternative sources of audit evidence. Fourth, the nature, scope and objectives of the management expert work. Fifth, whether the management expert is employed by the entity or is a party engaged by it to provide the relevant services. क्योंकि if it is employed by the entity, हो सकता है कहीं ना कहीं उस मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट को की ऑब्जेक्टिविटी पे आपको डाउट हो जाए. वाई? बिकॉज ही इज़ इनटू एम्प्लॉयमेंट. तो हो सकता है उसको अपनी एम्प्लॉयमेंट को बचाने के लिए कई बार कुछ गलत कंक्लूजन्स पर भी आना पड़ रहा हो या गलत एजम्पशंस भी वो ले रहा हो. ठीक है. द एक्सटेंट टू विच मैनेजमेंट कैन एक्सरसाइज कंट्रोल और इन्फ्लुएंस ओवर द वर्क ऑफ मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट, दिस कैन ऑल्सो बी वन ऑफ द रीजंस मैटर विच कैन अफेक्ट द NTE. Whether the management expert is subject to technical performance standards or other professional or industry requirements, the nature and extent of any controls within the entity over the management expert work, the auditor's knowledge and experience of the management expert's field of expertise. How much do you know about his field of expertise? The auditor's previous experience of the work of that expert. अगर आपके पास prior experience है तो आपको पता होगा whether he does the work efficiently, effectively or not. Next is the auditor's duties in case of inconsistency in or doubts over the reliability of the audit evidence. If that is the case, then the auditor shall determine the modifications, additions which are required in the audit procedures so as to resolve the matter that arise due to the following reasons. First of all, the audit evidence obtained from one source is inconsistent with that of obtained from the another. Yeah, and the doubts over the reliability of information to be used as an audit evidence. In such a case, the auditor will have to consider the effect of the matter, if any, on the aspects of audit. Audit procedures for obtaining the audit evidence. First of all, the risk assessment procedure. Second is the further audit procedures. Further audit procedures is further divided into two parts: test of controls and substantive procedures. Substantive procedures is again divided into two parts: test of details and substantive analytical procedures. Now, nature, timing and extent will be affected by the availability of audit evidence in electronic form only. Availability of audit evidence at certain points or period in time. Next is the methods to obtain the audit evidence. For this, we have a mnemonic or memory technique, that is ICAI, observe, reperformance, recalculation. So for I, we have inspection, that is examining the records or documents, whether internal documents are there or you are getting the records from external sources, whether it is in paper form, electronic form or other media, या फिर you will have to physically examine the asset. Okay. Confirmation की बात करें तो confirmation can be external also, represents that the audit evidence obtained by the auditor as a direct written response to the auditor from a third party, the confirming party, in paper form, electronic form or other medium. This is the external confirmation that we take. Okay. Next is analytical procedures, consists of evaluations of financial information which is made by a study of relationships among both financial and non-financial data. Next is inquiry, consists of seeking information of knowledgeable persons, like you are going and taking information from the knowledgeable persons within or outside the entity. The information can be both financial in nature or non-financial in nature. It is used extensively throughout the audit in addition to other audit procedures. It can range from formal written inquiries to informal oral inquiries. Auditor may consider it necessary to obtain WRs from the management or TCWG to confirm the responses. Next is evaluating the responses to inquiries. It is an integral part of inquiry process. Responses to inquiries may provide the auditor with information which is not previously possessed or with the corroborative audit evidences. Now, alternatively, responses might provide information that differs significantly from other information that the auditor has obtained. Now, in some cases, responses to inquiries provide a basis for the auditor to modify या फिर perform the additional procedures. Okay, now let's talk about the reliability of audit evidences. So independent sources that is from outside the entity are obviously more reliable. इसको हम external sources भी बोलते हैं if compared to internal sources. Internal sources आपके reliable थोड़े से कम होते हैं. वो आपके reliable तब खुद माने जाते हैं when the internal controls are very very effective. Now whether the audit evidences are obtained directly or indirectly, this will also definitely help you to know whether the audit evidence is reliable or not. If it is obtained directly, then obviously वो ज़्यादा reliable होता है. Documentary form में होता है या फिर orally form में है, that you need to see. Obviously बात है documentary form is more reliable, that is in paper, electronic और other medium. Original documents हैं या फिर photocopies हैं, film documents हैं, digitized हैं, transformed into electronic form है, तो which will be more reliable? The original documents will be obviously more reliable, but reliability depends upon the controls over their preparation and maintenance. That's it. We have completed the whole SA 500. Yes, in methods to obtain audit evidences, there were points like observe, reperformance and recalculation. That is very, very simple. You can observe and obtain the audit evidences by observing things, like for example the physical verification going on. Reperformance means doing the same work which has been done by the management again by yourself. Recalculation means the calculation which has already been done, you are going to do that calculation on a sample basis to make sure that the calculations that the system is doing is correct or not. So these were the methods to obtain the audit evidence part. So yeah, this is all about SA 500, which is audit evidences that we have completed just now. Let's talk about SA 501, which is audit evidence, specific considerations for specific items or selected items. In this particular case, we are going to talk about inventory, litigation and claims, and the third one is the segment information. Inventory के लिए existence and condition has to be seen, litigation then claim के लिए completeness has to be seen, segment information के लिए presentation and disclosure has to be seen. Auditors procedures to collect the audit evidences as to existence and condition of inventory की अगर हम बात करें तो there are two things that you need to remember, that is the general procedure and the special procedures. When we talk about the general procedures, so first point is if the inventory is material to the financial statements, auditor will have to attend the inventory count unless it is impractical to do so. He will have to evaluate the management instructions, he will observe the performance of management count procedures, and he is going to inspect the inventory as well. Also, he will have to perform some test count. Auditor is required to perform the procedures, that is like vouching and all those things, over the inventory records to ensure that the records reflect the results of inventory count, that is whatever is the inventory count, the records also show the same. Next is special procedure. So inventory count on the date other than balance sheet date. If the inventory counting is done on a date which is not the balance sheet date, then the procedures have to be performed on the transactions for intervening period to ensure that such transactions are appropriately recorded, because the date of balance sheet and the date of inventory count is different. So intervening period transactions have to be seen. Next is to attend the inventory count is impractical. If you are not able to attend the inventory count because of impractical reasons, then you will have to perform the alternate audit procedures, because you are not able to perform the first procedure, that is the inventory count attend karna. Then the alternative audit procedures have to be performed to collect the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences regarding the existence and condition of inventory. For example, you can take the written representations, you can vouch the documents, you can video call while the inventory count is being done. External confirmations can also be one of the alternative audit procedures. If auditor is unable to collect the audit evidence from the alternate audit procedures, he is required to modify the audit opinion as per SA 705, which is qualified or disclaimer of opinion. He is going to give the qualified opinion when the inventory is material but not pervasive, but if the inventory is material as well as pervasive, then definitely disclaimer of opinion has to be given. Auditor unable to attend the inventory count के case में, if we see, perform the test count. यहाँ पर it was not impractical, but still you are unable to attend the inventory count. In this case, you will have to perform the test count on alternate day, whichever day you can go. Next is perform the procedures on the transactions for intervening period to ensure that such transactions are recorded appropriately. Third is ensure the appropriate cutoff procedures are being applied. Then obtain WR from the management as to the completeness of information being provided. You will have to verify the procedures which are performed by the management over the discrepancies noticed during the verification. When the verification was going on, some discrepancies were noticed by the management. So what have they done to rectify the same? Okay. Next, inventory in the custody of third party. If the inventory is with the third party, then you will request the third party for external confirmations in accordance with the requirements of SA 505. You will also have to perform other procedures which you think are appropriate. For example, you can visit the premises of third party if it is permissible to you, obtain the auditor's assistance from the auditor of third party, or you can go for subsequent tracing. You can do obtain the written representations as well. Next is the auditor's procedures with respect to litigation and claims. That is the second point in which we need to see the completeness. In this case, auditor is required to identify these by the following procedures. First of all, he is going to inquire the management and others within the entity, including the in-house legal counsel, if any. Second is he is going to review the minutes of meetings of TCWG and the communication between the entity and the external legal counsel. Third one is the review of legal expenses account, because obviously अगर legal expenses के खर्चे हो रहे होंगे तो वहाँ पर वो ज़रूर दिखेंगे. Procedures in special circumstances, if I talk about the auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement with respect to existence of litigation or claim. So you will have to seek the communication directly with the entity's external legal counsel. If the law, regulation or respective legal professional body prohibits you that you cannot communicate with the entity's external legal counsel directly, then you will have to perform the alternate audit procedures. Now, management refuses to permit the auditor to communicate, or the external legal counsel refuses, या फिर auditor is unable to collect the sufficient appropriate audit evidences from the alternate procedures. In all these cases, what are you going to do? You are going to give the modification in the opinion in accordance with SA 705. WRs from the management and TCWG that all known actual and possible litigation and claims affecting the financial statements have been disclosed to the auditor. You will have to take the WR from the management that yes, you have disclosed everything to us and appropriately accounted for and disclosed in accordance with the applicable FRF. You will have to obtain the WR with respect to both of these things. Next, audit procedures with respect to segment information. So in this case also you will have to obtain the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences regarding the presentation and disclosure of segment information in accordance with the applicable FRF by obtaining an understanding of the methods which are used by the management in determining the segment information and evaluating whether such methods are likely to result in accordance with the applicable FRF. And where appropriate, testing the application of such methods is also to be done by the auditor. Apart from this, he will have to perform the analytical procedures or other procedures which are appropriate in the given circumstances. Okay, so this was all about SA 501 audit evidence specific considerations for selected items, that is inventory, litigation and claims, and segment information. SA 505 external confirmation. So what do you mean by external confirmation? Any audit evidence obtained as a direct written response to the auditor from a third party, that is the confirming party, in paper form or by electronic or other medium is known as external confirmation. What are the types of external confirmation? It can be a positive confirmation request or it can be a negative confirmation request. Positive confirmation request के अंदर reply हमेशा आएगा ही आएगा, चाहे फिर वो उस बात से agree कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं, whatever information was being confirmed. Negative confirmation रिक्वेस्ट के केस में there is no guarantee कि आपके पास रिस्पॉन्स हमेशा आएगा ही आएगा, because if they do not agree with the information that you have confirming from them, only then they are going to reply. If they agree with the information that you are confirming, then they are not going to reply for the same. So this is what negative confirmation request, which is more reliable. Positive confirmation request is obviously reliable क्योंकि reply आता ही आता है. So positive confirmation request की बात करें तो a request that the confirming party respond directly to the auditor indicating whether the confirming party agrees or disagrees in both the cases with the information in the request or providing the requested information. If I talk about the negative confirmation request, so a request that the confirming party respond directly to the auditor only if the confirming party disagrees with the information provided in the request. Okay. Now, what are the areas where external confirmation may be obtained? First of all, bank balance and other confirmation from the bankers. Second is the accounts receivables and accounts payables balances, stock lying with the third parties, property title deed held by the third parties, investments purchased but delivery not taken, loan from lenders, terms of agreement or transactions with the third parties. तो third party वाले ही काफ़ी सारे points हैं, वैसे भी आपको ये सब पता होगा, आपने audit करते टाइम practically भी ये सब चीज़ें करी भी होंगी. Next is the implications of positive and negative requests. So पॉजिटिव की बात करें तो इट इज कंसिडर्ड एज सफिशिएंट एंड एप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ विच द ऑडिटर कैन ड्रॉ हिज कंक्लूजन्स फॉर्मिंग बेसिस फॉर द ओपिनियन. नाउ नेगेटिव कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट की बात करें, इट प्रोवाइड्स अ लिटिल लेस परसुएसिव ऑडिट एविडेंस एज कंपेयर टू पॉजिटिव रिक्वेस्ट. दैट इज व्हाई इट हैज टू बी यूज्ड for a limited purpose. When the below mentioned conditions are satisfied, the auditor may use the negative request. So they have given some conditions. If you fulfill all these, or if you fulfill some of these, you can think of giving a negative confirmation request. Otherwise it's more likely that you should give a positive confirmation request. Now first of all, the risk of material misstatement is low. If the risk of material misstatement is low, then you can consider giving a negative confirmation request. Or the expected chances of disagreement are low. For example, if the expected chances of disagreement are high, then in that case if the deviations, अगर deviations के chances कम हैं तो उस केस में आप नेगेटिव कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट दे सकते हो. नेक्स्ट इज द ऑडिटर इज अनअवेयर ऑफ एनी सिचुएशन और सर्कमस्टांस दैट थर्ड पार्टी विल डिसरिगार्ड द रिक्वेस्ट. आपको ऑडिटर अगर अनअवेयर है इस बात का से या सिचुएशन से या सर्कमस्टांस से कि थर्ड पार्टी डिसरिगार्ड कर देगी रिक्वेस्ट को, उस केस में भी आप नेगेटिव रिक्वेस्ट भेज सकते हो. पॉपुलेशन कंप्राइजेस ऑफ लार्ज नंबर ऑफ होमोजेनस ट्रांजैक्शंस ऑफ स्मॉलर अमाउंट्स. जैसे कि बहुत छोटे छोटे अमाउंट के बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रांजैक्शन है, तो वहाँ पे पॉजिटिव कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट तो बहुत मुश्किल हो जाएगा देना, क्योंकि इतने सारे लोगों को आप भेजोगे, फिर इतने सारे लोगों का रिस्पॉन्स आएगा, तो इट विल बी अ वेरी टफ टास्क फॉर यू टू हैंडल ऑल द रिस्पॉन्सेज. इंस्टेड आपके पास अगर उन्हीं लोगों से रिप्लाई आए जो डिसअग्री कर रहे हैं, तो डेफिनेटली वो आपके लिए थोड़ा सा बेनिफिशियल हो जाएगा. नेक्स्ट इज द प्रोसीजर्स टू बी फॉलोड टू कलेक्ट द एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, डिटर्मिनिंग द इन्फॉर्मेशन टू बी कंफर्म्ड और रिक्वेस्टेड. व्हाट इन्फॉर्मेशन आर यू लुकिंग फॉर टू बी कंफर्म्ड रिगार्डिंग द अकाउंट बैलेंस एंड देयर एलिमेंट्स, या फिर टर्म्स ऑफ अग्रीमेंट्स, कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स, ट्रांजैक्शन. ये आपको चेक करना पड़ेगा. व्हाट इन्फॉर्मेशन आर यू गोइंग टू कंफर्म फ्रॉम द थर्ड पार्टी. सेकंड इज सिलेक्टिंग द एप्रोप्रिएट कंफर्मिंग पार्टी. विच पार्टी नीड्स टू बी सेंट अ कंफर्मेशन रिक्वेस्ट. यू नीड टू फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल select that. Knowledgeable about the information है या नहीं, prerequisite knowledge about the subject matter to be confirmed, whether he has such thing or not. Third is the designing the confirmation request properly addressed होना चाहिए. Return information should be mentioned, like it has to be sent directly to the auditor, that you need to mention. Next is the sending the request. After all this has been done, you have to just send the request, including the follow-up request when applicable, to the confirming party. For example, you sent the request but there was no reply to that request, then in that case you can definitely go for follow-up request. Next is special situations. Auditor may ask the management for external confirmation. If the management refuses to refuses to agree that yes you can go for external confirmation, then in that case you will first of all ask the management, why can't we do so? You will inquire the reasons for the same. You are going to collect the evidences as to the validity and reasonableness of their refusal. If you feel that the reasons are satisfactory, then definitely you can go for alternate audit procedures. But if you think that the reasons that the management is giving is not at all satisfactory, then you will communicate this to the TCWG as per SA 260. Then you will evaluate its effect on the audit opinion and your audit, okay, and you will communicate the same to the TCWG. Next, if the management allows you to go for external confirmation, then in that case you will perform the procedures which are prescribed to collect the confirmation. If the reply is received from third party, then you are going to see whether the third party agrees with the information or it disagrees with the information, or you find out that the reply received is not reliable, या फिर हो सकता है the reply received is doubtful. In all these cases you will have to first of all analyze whether this is the case. Second case can be, second possibility is reply is not at all received. If the reply is not at all received from the third party, then you will have to go for alternate audit procedures to collect the audit evidences. Now, if the audit evidences are unavailable, then definitely you will have to modify your opinion as per SAC 705. But if the reply received from third party is then if the reply is received from third party and you find out that the third party also agrees with the information, then it's very good. Consider it as an audit evidence and you will go for unmodified opinion. But if the third party replies and it says that it disagrees with the information that you requested, then in that case you will investigate to identify the instances of misstatement, why there is a disagreement between the two. For example, you said that the balance is 10 lakh rupees, but the third party says that the balance is only 4 lakh rupees. You will have to then identify the reasons for this misstatement. You will have to see whether this is a case of check received but not deposited, or it is a case of debit note, it is a case of misstatement. All this has to be done. For this you will need to prepare the reconciliation statement. Next is reply is received from the third party but it is not reliable. Now in this case you will evaluate its impact on the audit procedures and your audit opinion. For example, you sent a confirmation request to a related party. Now third party is a related party, which means the information which will be received from them is not reliable. You cannot rely on the information that is being provided to you. So in this case you will see what are the audit procedures that you can perform, other alternative procedures you can perform, or what is the impact going to be on your audit opinion and audit. You will have to see that. Next is reply is received from the third party but it is doubtful. Now in this case you will compare the reply with the other audit evidences that you have obtained to see whether the doubt is resolved or not. Okay, so this is all about SA 505, that is external confirmations. SA 510 initial audit engagement opening balances. Now what do you mean by initial audit engagement? So an engagement in which the financial statements for the prior period are either not audited at all or they were audited but they were audited by a predecessor auditor. Now what do you mean by a predecessor auditor? Auditor from a different firm who audited the financial statements of an entity in the prior period and who has been replaced by the current auditor is known as the predecessor auditor. Now what do you mean by opening balances? Those accounts balances that exist at the beginning of the period are known as opening balances. Based upon the closing balances of the prior period and reflect the effects of transaction and events for the prior periods and accounting policies which were applied in the prior period. Also include matters requiring disclosure that existed at the beginning of the period, such as contingencies and commitments. Okay. Next, we'll talk about the audit procedures with respect to opening balances. Study prior period financial statement and audit report thereon, if any, so as to obtain the information with respect to closing balances of the prior period. So, in this particular standard, you will have to imagine you are going for an audit of an entity whose audit you are going to perform for the first time. Your firm is performing the audit for the same for the first time. Okay. Now, in this case, what are you going to do? You are going to ask for the previous year financial statements, audit report, that is the complete set of financial statements, you are going to ask for the complete annual report of the previous year, right? What are you going to do then? You are going to study that. Okay, you will see what are the closing balances of the prior period. Now, in this case, you will examine whether the closing balances of the prior period are appropriately carried as the opening balances in the current period. In case any difference exists in the opening balances, you will have to ensure that the appropriate adjustment entry is being passed as prior period item in the books of accounts. In relation to significant opening balances, auditor will have to perform specific procedures if he has any doubt over the reliability of prior period financial statement or if the prior period financial statements were not audited. He will have to see that. External confirmation may be obtained for accounts receivables, accounts payables, inspection of certificates of investments, bank statements may be examined to confirm the bank balances, municipal tax receipts may be examined to ensure the ownership of land and building. If the auditor identifies any material misstatement in the opening balances, he will have to evaluate its effect on the current period financial statements, obviously. Now, in misstatements, if misstatements in opening balances affect the current period financial statements, then the auditor shall communicate to the management with a request for appropriate corrections to be made in the books of accounts, and appropriate disclosures are also required in the financial statements as it is required by SA 450 as well. Now, if appropriate accounting and disclosures are not made by the management in relation to misstatements identified, then he should modify the audit opinion, that is, he can go for qualified or adverse opinion because he asked them to correct the same but they did not do that. Then obviously you are going to give the modified opinion. If the auditor is not able to collect the audit evidences with respect to opening balances due to limitations being imposed by the management or any other reason, then in that case you are going to also modify your opinion, but this time qualified or disclaimer of opinion depending upon the pervasiveness, materiality and pervasiveness. Okay. So this is all about SA 510. Let's revise SA 520, which is analytical procedures. What is the scope of SA 520? So it deals with the use of analytical procedures as a substantive analytical procedure. Now, application of analytical procedures as risk assessment procedures are covered in SA 315, which we have already covered. What do you mean by the analytical procedure? So, analytical procedure means the procedures that are used to evaluate the financial information by establishing the relationship, okay, among the financial data and the non-financial data. And it also includes investigation of the identified fluctuations. Remember this, okay? So, AP, that is the analytical procedure, comprises of two things. First of all, the consideration of comparison, and secondly, the consideration of relationships. Okay, so consideration of comparison amongst what? So consideration of comparison of entities' financial information with the prior period financial information, anticipated information, that is for the future, And third one is the industry average. When we talk about the consideration of relationships among the elements of the financial information, that is the GP ratio, NP ratio, etc., and the elements of financial as well as non-financial information, for example, the dividend ratio, the labor turnover ratio. Okay. Next is the audit procedure while using the analytical procedure. What is going to be your audit procedure? So first of all, you will have to evaluate the suitability of particular substantive analytical procedure, that whether it is suitable or not. For example, if we talk about these substantive analytical procedures, so substantive analytical procedures are generally more suitable for large volume of transactions that can be predicted over a period. Okay, for example, in case of a room rent of a hotel, it can be predicted as number of rooms of a particular category into the occupancy ratio into number of days, that is 365 days, into the average tariff per day that the hotel is charging. Okay, similarly, employee salary can be predicted as average number of employees of a category into the average salary per month into number of months, that is 12. Okay, now different types of substantive analytical procedures will provide different levels of assurance to the auditor. Obviously baat hai. For example, in a particular situation, comparison of one financial information with the other period information may be considered more suitable than comparison with the industry average or anticipated information. I hope you are able to recall everything. Next is suitability of substantive analytical procedure may be considered on the basis of extent of the test of details that have been performed for the same assertion. Now, secondly, evaluate the reliability of the data. First of all, suitability. Second is reliability. Reliability kiski? Data ki reliability. This will depend upon the following factors. First of all, the source of information that is available. Second one is the comparability of the information. Third is the nature and relevance of information. Then we have controls over the preparation of information. First is the source of information, then comparability, then nature and relevance, then we have the controls that are there over the preparation of information. Next is develop an expectation of the recorded amount or ratio by applying the selected substantive analytical procedure over the information or data. You are going to develop an expectation. Okay. Next is determine the tolerable range of misstatements for which no further investigation is required based on the materiality aspects, like you don't have to do any investigation on these items because you have defined that this is my materiality. If it is going beyond this, then I'm going to investigate, otherwise I'm not. Okay. Next is if difference arises beyond the tolerable range. This was the tolerable range, but beyond this the differences are arising, then in that case you will have to inquire the management and you will have to obtain the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences in relation to reasonableness of their replies, whether the replies given by the management are reasonable or not. Perform the test of details as and when it seems appropriate to you. Okay, so this was all about SA 520 analytical procedure. SA 530 audit sampling. What do you mean by audit sampling? So what do you mean by sampling first of all? So application of the audit procedures to less than 100% of the items within a population of audit relevance, such that all the sampling units have a chance of selection in order to provide the auditor with a reasonable basis on which to draw the conclusions about the entire population. So the auditor is going to perform the audit procedures on a population which is obviously not 100% because you are selecting some units out of it, and the units out of which you are selecting have equal chance of selection. Now you are going to apply all these procedures to these limited units and you are going to draw the opinion on the whole population, like whatever opinion that you conclude from on the limited units, you are going to apply that to the whole population. Okay. Now, what are the types of sampling? So, there are two types of sampling, statistical sampling and one is non-statistical sampling. Statistical sampling क्या होती है? So, उसकी कुछ characteristics होती है that we need to remember. First of all, the random selection. Second is use of probability theory to evaluate the sample results. Third is more scientific method as it involves the use of laws of probability while wide application where population consists of a large number of similar items. So here you are going to use the laws of probability. इसकी वजह से आप इसको क्या कह सकते हो? It is more scientific in nature. When I talk about non-statistical sampling, so there is no random selection, there is no use of probability theory. The sample size and its composition are determined on the basis of personal experience and knowledge of the auditor. Okay, so here it is totally judgmental based. common application for many years since simple in operation or use. Everybody uses this because it is common in it is simple to use, it is मोस्ट कॉमन, ज़्यादा टेक्निकल नहीं है, तो इट्स वेरी इजी टू यूज़. सैम्पलिंग रिस्क की अगर मैं बात करूँ तो रिस्क दैट द ओपिनियन एक्सप्रेस्ड बाय द ऑडिटर ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सैम्पल्स may differ from the opinion if entire population was examined. For example, since you are applying the procedures on some units, that is on the samples, so you are drawing the conclusions on the whole population. Let's say if you would have applied those procedures to the whole population, then the opinion that you would have obtained might be different from that you have already obtained because of the samples. So this difference in the opinion is what is known as the sampling risk. The chances of giving different opinions, drawing different conclusions is the sampling risk. Now, risk of over reliance and risk of under reliance की we are going to talk about in detail. Risk of over reliance in relation to TOC. Internal controls strong when actually they are not. आपने क्या किया? While performing the test of controls, you assumed the internal controls to be strong when they were not so. So in this case, what are you going to do? You are over relying on the controls, so there is a risk of over reliance. Correct है? Similarly, if I talk about under reliance, तो इस केस में क्या होगा? इंटरनल कंट्रोल्स इफेक्टिव नहीं थे, आपने ऐसा मान लिया जबकि वो इफेक्टिव थे, तो आपने क्या किया? कम रिलाई किया. तो ये क्या है आपका रिस्क ऑफ अंडर रिलायंस. इन रिलेशन टू टेस्ट ऑफ डिटेल्स इफ आई टॉक अबाउट, तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ओवर रिलायंस के केस में नो मिस स्टेटमेंट एग्जिस्ट व्हेन एक्चुअली दे एग्जिस्ट. आपने बोल दिया कि मिस स्टेटमेंट एग्जिस्ट नहीं करती, आपने ऐसा मान लिया जबकि मिस स्टेटमेंट एग्जिस्ट करती थी. तो यहाँ पर आप क्या कर रहे हो? ज़्यादा रिलाई कर रहे हो, इसकी वजह से आपने इस चीज़ को नज़रअंदाज कर दिया. इसीलिए इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा? इट विल लीड टू इट विल अफेक्ट योर ऑडिट इफेक्टिवनेस ड्यू टू एररनियस कंक्लूजन्स. If I talk about the test of details in case of risk of under reliance, इस केस में क्या होगा? मिस स्टेटमेंट्स एग्जिस्ट करती थी, आपने ऐसा मान लिया when actually they do not exist. तो इधर आप अंडर रिलाई कर रहे हो, इसकी वजह से आप टेस्टिंग ज़्यादा करोगे, इसकी वजह से आपकी ऑडिट एफिशिएंसी पर फ़र्क पड़ेगा, आप ज़्यादा टाइम डिवोट कर दोगे उस चीज़ पर जिस पर आपको नहीं करना चाहिए था. सो इधर दिस विल लीड टू योर अफेक्टिंग योर audit efficiency, which will conclude that initial conclusions were wrong, because of which आप इस चीज़ को प्रूव करने के लिए कि आपकी initial conclusion wrong थी, आप ज़्यादा टाइम डिवोट करना पड़ेगा, इसके लिए आपका टाइम वेस्ट होगा, ऑडिट एफिशिएंसी पर आपका फ़र्क पड़ेगा. Next is stratification, tolerable rate of deviation, tolerable misstatement. Let's talk about stratification first. So stratification means you are converting the heterogeneous population into the homogeneous group. इसको क्या बोलते हैं? strata. ठीक है. So the conversion process is known as stratification. You are converting the heterogeneous population into the homogeneous group. Next is tolerable rate of deviation. इसके मतलब क्या होता है? Acceptable deviations in the designed internal controls. Next is tolerable misstatements, acceptable misstatements in the financial statements. Application of performance materiality is there. Next is auditor's consideration while applying the sampling procedure. So first of all, sample design, size and selection. So population should be designed in such a manner that the sample selected should represent the entire population. Stratification has to be done in such a way that it represents the entire population. Why? Because you are going to apply the procedures on these samples and on the basis of this you are going to conclude that the population is so and so. So इस केस में आपका जो sample है वो पूरी population को ऐसा represent करेगा, तभी मतलब वो उसको represent करता होगा, तभी तो वो सही sample selection होगा. So that is why you need to make sure that your sample selected, the sample that you are selecting should represent the entire population. The size of samples should be so much sufficient so as to reduce the audit risk to an acceptably low level. Okay. Next, samples should be selected in such a manner that the biasness should not enter the selection. Various methods that can be used for selection are first of all the random selection, second is systematic selection, then block selection, monetary unit selection, then haphazard selection. These are some types of selections that we have already, the methods of selection that we have already discussed in the detailed video. I'm not going to cover it over here. You just need to be familiar with the names. एंड थोड़ा बहुत कंटेंट पता होना चाहिए. कॉन्सेप्ट, रैंडम सिलेक्शन, सिस्टमैटिक सिलेक्शन, ब्लॉक सिलेक्शन, मॉनिटरी यूनिट सिलेक्शन, haphazard selection. Mostly they can ask this the methods that can be used for selection in MCQ questions. Okay. Next, Perform the audit procedures over the selected samples. If designed audit procedure cannot be applied over the selected item, auditor shall perform the alternative audit procedure on the original sample, okay, and perform the designed audit procedure over the replacement sample. So what did I say? I said if the designed audit procedure cannot be applied over the selected item, आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा as an auditor? You will have to perform the alternate audit procedure on the original sample and perform the designed audit procedure over the replacement sample. Now, evaluating the result of audit procedures performed over the entire population. Evaluate whether the result of sampling can be effectively applied for expressing an opinion on the entire population. If yes, then go ahead, you can express the opinion. If no, then determine the other procedures that you need to apply over the remaining population. Next, what are the factors that affect the sample size in case of test of controls? Increase in the extent to which the auditor's risk assessment takes into account relevant controls. Increase in the expected rate of deviation of the population to be tested. Increase in the auditor's desired level of assurance that the tolerable rate of deviation is not exceeded by the actual rate of deviation in the population. In this case, what is going to be there? You are going to increase the sample size. Okay, increase in the tolerable rate of deviation. If the tolerable rate of deviation is increasing, then obviously you can decrease the sample size. Now let's talk about in case of TOD, increase in the auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement, increase in the auditor's desired level of assurance that the tolerable misstatement is not exceeded by the actual misstatement in the population, increase in the amount of misstatement that the auditor expects to find in the population. In all such cases, he is going to increase the sample size. Next is increase in the use of other substantive procedures directed at the same assertion. Decrease your sample size. Increase in the tolerable misstatement. Tolerable misstatement increase होगी तो आपका sample size कम हो जाएगा. Stratification of the population when appropriate. In this case also you can decrease your sample size. All these factors were discussed in detail in the detailed video. In case you don't know the logics behind all these increase and decrease in the sample size, you can refer to that video. Here we are just revising the whole standard, that is SA 530 audit sampling. It's complete. SA 540 auditing accounting estimates, including fair value accounting estimates and related disclosures. So let's talk about the meaning. First of all, what do you mean by accounting estimate? So for accounting estimate may be defined as an approximation of a monetary amount in the absence of a precise means of measurement. It is used for an amount measured at the rate of fair value where there is estimation uncertainty. The degree of estimation uncertainty affects the risk of material misstatement of the accounting estimates. Estimation uncertainty means the susceptibility of an accounting estimate and the related disclosures to an inherent risk of precision in its measurement. The difference between the outcome of an accounting estimate and the amount originally recognized in the financial statement does not necessarily represent a misstatement of financial statements. This particularly is because of fair value accounting estimates. You cannot say that the accounting estimate which was made originally and the originally amount recognized, both are different. So the difference between the two is a misstatement, because earlier when you estimated you did not know कि actual में क्या होने वाला है. This is just because of the fair value accounting estimate changes. इसकी वजह से आप you cannot say this is a misstatement, I'm going to qualify or I'm going to give a qualified or adverse opinion. No, you cannot say that. You will have to evaluate. Okay. Now, what are the examples of accounting estimates? Allowance for doubtful accounts, inventory obsolescence, वारंटी ऑब्लिगेशंस, डेप्रीसिएशन मेथड और असेट्स यूजफुल लाइफ, ये सब आप क्या करते हो? एस्टिमेट करते हो. दिस इज ऑल अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट. प्रोविजन अगेंस्ट द कैरिंग अमाउंट ऑफ एन इन्वेस्टमेंट, आउटकम ऑफ लॉन्ग टर्म कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स, फाइनेंशियल ऑब्लिगेशन, कॉस्ट अराइजिंग फ्रॉम लिटिगेशन, सेटलमेंट एंड जजमेंट्स, ऑल दीज आर अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट्स के एग्जाम्पल्स. नाउ व्हाट आर द एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ फेयर वैल्यू अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट्स? फेयर वैल्यू अकाउंटिंग एस्टिमेट्स की बात करें तो यहाँ पर आ जाएगा कॉम्प्लेक्स फाइनेंशियल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स. आपको वैसे ही पता होगा, एफआर में आप पढ़ चुके हो. Next, share-based payments, property or equipment held for disposal, certain assets or liabilities which are acquired in a business combination, including goodwill and intangible assets, transactions involving the exchange of assets or liabilities between independent parties without monetary consideration. Next, we have estimates with low estimation uncertainty. I'm so sorry, I have a bad throat today. So where was I? I was on the estimates with low estimation uncertainty. First point is accounting estimates arising in entities that engage in business activities that are not at all complex. इस केस में estimation uncertainty कम होगी क्योंकि जो transactions होंगी because the business is not very complex तो transactions भी उतनी ज़्यादा complex नहीं होंगी तो estimation के गलत होने के chances भी कम होंगे, right? Next, accounting estimates that are frequently made and updated because they relate to routine transaction. जो चीज़ routine में होती है वहाँ पर गलती होने के chance कम हो जाते हैं because you're doing it every single day. Next, accounting estimates which are derived from data that is readily available such as published interest rate data or exchange traded price of securities. Since it is already published, it is observable, तो यहाँ पर गलती होने के chances कम हो जाएंगे. Such data may be referred to as observable in the context of fair value accounting estimate. Okay, so गलती होने के chances कम से कम होंगे. Fair value accounting estimates where the method of measurement prescribed by the applicable FRF is simple and applied easily to the asset or liability requiring measurement at fair value. Simple है, easy है, chances कम होते हैं गलती होने के. Fair value accounting estimates where the model used to measure the accounting estimate is well known or generally accepted provided that all the assumptions or inputs to the model are observable, which means that they are similar. Okay, तो यहाँ पर भी आपकी लो estimation uncertainty होगी. Now, what are the estimates where there is a chance of high estimation uncertainty? तो जैसे कि accounting estimates which are relating to the outcome of litigation. You do not know whether the claim would be applicable to you, whether you will have to pay the claim or not, and if yes, what is going to be that amount? You are not very sure about it. तो इधर आपकी estimation uncertainty definitely high होती है. Fair value accounting estimates for the derivative financial instruments not publicly traded. Not publicly traded means not listed. जहाँ पर information gather करना is very very difficult. तो यहाँ पर definitely high estimation uncertainty है. Fair value estimates for which a highly specialized entity developed model is used, for which there are assumptions or inputs that cannot be observed in the marketplace. So definitely high estimation uncertainty. Now, what are the procedures to evaluate the accounting estimates? So, first of all, let's talk about the risk assessment procedures. So, auditor will obtain an understanding of the following. First of all, he is going to see the requirements of the applicable FRF. Then he is going to identify the process which the management is using to identify the events which require the estimation. Then, what is the management's estimation making process? You will see that. Now, what is the outcome of accounting estimates of the prior period? You are also going to obtain the understanding of the same. Now, for this purpose, auditor may inquire the management and others within the entity. Now, what are going to be the matters on which the inquiry may be made by the auditor? So, entity has engaged in new types of transactions that may give rise to accounting estimates. You are going to discuss those matters. Terms of transactions that give rise to accounting estimates have changed. Definitely consider this as a discussion. Next, accounting policies relating to accounting estimates have changed as a result of changes to the requirements of the applicable FRF or otherwise. Regulatory or other changes outside the control of management have occurred that may require the management to revise or to make new accounting estimates. New conditions or events have occurred that may give rise to the need for new or revised accounting estimates. Okay, so all these are the matters on which inquiry may be made by the auditor from the management or others within the entity. Next is the responses to the assessed risks. Based on the understanding that you have obtained and the risks that you have identified and assessed as above, auditor shall determine whether the management has appropriately applied the requirements as per the applicable FRF or not. Whether the methods that the management has used for making the estimates are appropriate and whether they are consistently applied. For this purpose, auditor will have to perform some of the things, that is, he will have to test the operating effectiveness of the related controls, that is, he is going to do the TOC over the data on the basis of which the management makes the estimates. Then he is going to test the estimation making process which is used by the management and the data on which this process is applied. This is obviously the test of details. Then he is going to determine whether the events occurred up to the date of audit report provides evidences of the requirement of accounting estimate on reporting date. Because subsequent event वाला case तो नहीं हो रहा. चेक करना पड़ेगा. Develop an estimation range over evaluating the estimates which are made by the management. Now, factors influencing the degree of estimation uncertainty. What is the degree? That is whether it is high or low. You are going to see these factors because these factors definitely influence the degree of estimation uncertainty. First, the extent to which the accounting estimate depends on judgment. If it is highly judgmental, तो chances है वहाँ पर आपकी high uncertainty होगी. Next, the sensitivity of the accounting estimate to changes in the assumptions. If we change a particular assumption slightly, तो वहाँ पर ज़्यादा changes होने के मतलब outcome में ज़्यादा changes होने के chances है, तो definitely high estimation uncertainty है. Existence of recognized measurement techniques that may mitigate the estimation uncertainty. Though the subjectivity of the assumptions used as inputs may nevertheless give rise to estimation uncertainty, but still existence of the recognized measurement techniques that may mitigate the estimation uncertainty. Next, the length of the forecast period and the relevance of data drawn from past events to the forecast future events. If it is too long, तो यहाँ पर differences हो सकते हैं. Availability of the reliable data from the external sources, extent to which the accounting estimate is based on the observable or non-observable, that is unobservable inputs. Okay, so these are some of the factors that can affect whether the estimation uncertainty will be high or low. Management bias and its possible indicators. What is management bias? So management bias simply means the lack of neutrality by the management in the preparation and presentation of information. You're not neutral while you're preparing and presenting the information in the financial statements. So this is what the management's bias. What are the possible indicators of it? So changes in the accounting estimates or the method for making it, where the management has made a subjective assessment that there has been a change in circumstances. Subjective assessment कर दिया कि हाँ changes हुए हैं circumstances में, so that is why we are changing the accounting estimates or we are changing the method. तो यहाँ पर definitely there is a doubt कि हो सकता है they are not neutral. Next, use of an entity's own assumption for fair value accounting estimates when they are inconsistent with the observable marketplace assumptions. Selection or construction of a significant assumption that yield a point estimate favorable for management's objectives. Selection of a point estimate that may indicate pattern of optimism or pessimism. ज़्यादा ही ऑप्टिमिस्टिक हो गए हो या ज़्यादा ही पेसिमिस्टिक हो गए हो, ऐसा कुछ पैटर्न अगर आपको आइडेंटिफाई हो रहा है, कहीं पर भी ऐसा लगता है, तो यू विल डेफिनेटली सी वेदर दिस इज एन इंडिकेटर ऑफ मैनेजमेंट बीइंग बायस. ओके, सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट SA 540. उसका नाम क्या था? अकाउंटिंग auditing estimates, including the fair value accounting estimates and the related disclosures. Okay, let's move on to next standard, that is SA 550. SA 550, related party. So what do you mean by a related party? So a related party as defined in applicable FRF or in Indian context AS 18 or Ind AS 24, where applicable FRF establishes minimal or no related party requirements, then you can consider the related party definition as given in standard, which is a person or other entity who has control or significant influence directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries over the reporting entity is a related party. Okay, so let's say A and B. A is having significant influence or control, etc. over B. So A is a related party of B. Next, another entity over which the reporting entity has control or significant influence directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries, then that is also a related party. For example, B is having control over C, so C is a related party of B. Next, another entity that is under common control with the reporting entity through having common control ownership or owners who are close family members or they are common key management, then also that another entity will become a related party to the reporting entity. Now there can be a D which is having common control over A and B, so A and B की related party है D. Next, however, entities that are under common control by a state, that is national, regional or local government, are not considered as related unless they engage in significant transaction or share resources to a significant extent with one another. Okay, now what are the objectives? Objectives क्या है of an auditor? So irrespective of whether the applicable FRF establishes related party requirements, you have to obtain an understanding of the related party relationships and the transactions which are sufficient to be able to recognize fraud risk factors, if any, arising from the related party relationships and the transactions that are relevant to the identification and assessment of the risks of material misstatements due to fraud. And you will have to conclude whether the financial statements, in so far as they are affected by those relationships and transactions, achieve a true and fair presentation in case the entity is following the fair presentation framework, or are not misleading in case the entity is following the compliance framework. In addition to that, where the applicable FRF establishes the related party requirements to obtain the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences, so in addition, where the FRF establishes related party requirements, you will have to obtain the sufficient and appropriate audit evidences about whether the related party relationships and transactions have been appropriately identified, accounted, and disclosed in the financial statements in accordance with the framework whichever is the entity is following. Okay. Next, what is going to be the auditor's procedure? So, auditor's procedure is, first of all, let's talk about the risk assessment procedures, and then we are going to talk about the responses. So, what are the risk assessment procedures? You will have to understand the related party relationships and the transactions that have been undertaken by the related parties. Now, you will have to obtain an understanding of the management's control as to the authorization, approval of the related party transactions, identification of the related party, and the determination of related party relationships, accounting, disclosure requirements of the applicable FRF. This is what the management needs to do, and this is what you need to identify whether the management is doing it correctly or not. Next. इसके लिए आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? इसके लिए आपको इंक्वायर करना पड़ेगा मैनेजमेंट से कि आपकी रिलेटेड पार्टीज कौन है, क्या क्या चेंजेस आए हैं पिछले पीरियड से इस वाले पीरियड में, क्या रिलेशनशिप है उस रिलेटेड पार्टी के साथ, व्हाट इज द नेचर एंड पर्पस ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन दैट हैज बीन अंडरटेकन विद द रिलेटेड पार्टी. While obtaining the information and while performing the procedures, auditor should remain alert. He has to remain alert, skeptical for all the situations which signifies that some related party may exist or the related party transaction may occur which are not disclosed in the financial statements. हो सकता है ना घपला किया हो, इसलिए. Auditor to remain alert as to the occurrence of transaction that occurs other than the ordinary course of business. Now, what are going to be your responses? So, first of all, general response, then we will talk about the special situations. General response क्या रहने वाला है? You will have to obtain the sufficient appropriate audit evidence as to the appropriate accounting and disclosures as per FRF, because this is what the management needs to do. Special situations. Auditor identifies a related party that is not previously identified by the management. In this case, what are you going to do? You are going to communicate this to the members of engagement team. The other members who don't know about this, that this is the related party that the auditor has identified, which was not previously identified by the management. You are going to communicate this with the other members of your engagement team. You are going to inquire from the management the reasons for failure to identify the related party. Then you will request the management to identify the transaction with the related party identified by the auditor, and you will have to reconsider the risk that the other related party may exist. क्योंकि अब आपको डाउट होगा, अगर आपको एक मिली है तो हो सकता है दो भी हो, और तो इसीलिए आप रिकंसिडर करोगे इस चीज़ को. If non-disclosure of related party and related party relationship appears to be intentional, मतलब fraud लग रहा है, evaluate its impact on the audit and auditor's report. Okay. Next is evaluation of assertion of arm's length price. देखो related party transaction है तो सबसे पहले देखो क्या वो transaction arm's length price पर हुई है या नहीं. तो यहाँ पर आपको collect करने पड़ेंगे evidences with respect to assertion which is being used by the management as to arm's length price in case of related party transaction. For this purpose, auditor may compare the prices with the prices involved in the transaction with the unrelated party. यही होता है, इसके साथ आप यही आपका arm's length price तो arm's length price होता है, तो आपको पता चल जाएगा कंपेयर करने से. या फिर आप क्या कर सकते हो, कोई एक्सपर्ट भी हायर कर सकते हो इस चीज़ को पता लगाने के लिए कि whether the transaction undertaken between the related party and the entity is at arm's length or not. Okay. Now, third situation, auditor identify the transaction that occur outside the ordinary course of business. इस केस में क्या होगा? इस केस में आप बिजनेस रैशनल को आइडेंटिफाई करो, इंक्वायर करो, इंक्वायर द बिजनेस रैशनल ऑफ द ट्रांजैक्शन, क्यों किया गया था ऐसा. Examine the terms on which the transaction occurred. Collect the evidences as to approval, authorization of the transaction. You will have to collect the evidences as to the appropriate accounting and disclosure. Okay, so this is all about essay 550. Okay, one more topic is left, that is possible sources for identification of related party information. क्योंकि ये तो बोल दिया कि ऑडिटर को आइडेंटिफाई करना है, बट कैसे कर सकता है वो भी बता दिया स्टैंडर्ड ने. बैंक, लीगल, थर्ड पार्टी कन्फर्मेशंस ऑब्टेन्ड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ ऑडिटर प्रोसीजर्स कैन बी अ सॉर्ट ऑफ हिंट, जहाँ पर उसको आइडेंटिफाई हो जाए रिलेटेड पार्टी इन्फॉर्मेशन के बारे में. मिनट्स ऑफ मीटिंग्स ऑफ शेयर होल्डर्स एंड ऑफ TCWG कैन गिव अ हिंट. Next is others, that is the records, documents that he gets to know while he is performing the audit procedures. For example, entities' income tax returns, information which are supplied by the entity to the regulatory authorities. Shareholders registers may be one of the sources to identify the entity's principal shareholder. Record of entities' investments and those of its pension plans, क्योंकि जनरली हम रिलेटेड पार्टी वालों को फेवर करने की कोशिश करते हैं. Statement of conflict of interest from management of TCWG, contracts and agreements with the KMPs, TCWGs, life insurance policies acquired by the entity, internal auditors reports, then specific invoices, correspondence from the entity's professional advisors. All these can be possible sources for identification of related party information. Okay, so this is all about SA 550, which is related parties. SA 560, subsequent events. What do you mean by a subsequent event? So subsequent events means events occurring after the balance sheet date but before the date of audit report, and it also includes those facts that have become known to the auditor after the date of audit report. Okay, all these are what subsequent events. Now what are going to be my procedures, audit procedures in case of subsequent events? So there can be three possible cases. First of all, the events occurring between the date of financial statements and the date of audit report. Second can be facts which become known to the auditor after the date of auditor's report but before the financial statements were issued. Third, facts which become known to the auditor after the financial statements have been issued. So let's discuss audit procedures in all these cases one by one. Let's talk about the events occurring between the date of financial statements and the date of auditor's report. So in first case you are going to perform the procedures to obtain the evidences that all the events were, whether adjusting event or non-adjusting events, have been identified. Okay. Secondly, for this to do, you will have to obtain an understanding from the management regarding the procedures that they are following to identify these events. Secondly, you will inquire the management as to the occurrence of significant events that may affect the financial statement. Third, you are going to read the minutes of the board meeting which are held after the balance sheet date. Fourth, you are going to study the interim financial information if it is available, which is being prepared by the management subsequent to the balance sheet date. Okay. Next, if the auditor identified any event that requires adjustment or disclosure, you have to ensure that the appropriate accounting treatment as per the applicable FRF has been done or not. Next, you are going to obtain a WR from the management that all the known events, be it adjusting or non-adjusting, have been appropriately accounted for. Okay, so this is the audit procedure that you are going to perform in case of events which are occurring between the date of financial statements and the date of audit report. Let's talk about second case, facts which become known to the auditor after the date of auditor's report but before the date of financial statements are issued. In this particular case, you are going to see whether this fact, if it had been known at the date of auditor's report, may have caused the auditor to amend the report. If you had known this fact before, definitely this would have impacted your audit report. If you consider that, then in that case you will have to discuss this matter with the management. Okay, you will have to determine whether the financial statements need any amendment or not. If the financial statements don't need any amendment, then it's okay, fine, no problem. But if they need amendment, then you will have to inquire how the management is intending to address this matter in the financial statements. Now there can be two cases: if the management amends the financial statements, or second case can be if the management does not amend the financial statements. Now if the management amends the financial statement, auditor will have to extend his audit procedures to the date of new auditor's report, and he will have to provide a new auditor's report on the amended financial statements. When the law, regulation or FRF does not prohibit the management from restricting the amendment of financial statements to the effect of subsequent events to that amendment, in such a case the auditor shall amend the audit report to include an additional date restricted to that amendment, or he can provide a new or amended audit report that includes the EOM or OM para that conveys that the auditor's procedures on the subsequent events are restricted to solely amendments of the financial statements. Now, what if the management does not amend the financial statement at all? Then in that case, auditor will modify his opinion if the report has not yet been provided to the entity. Otherwise, the auditor shall notify notify the management and the TCWG not to issue the financial statements to the third parties. If the management still issues the financial statements, the auditor shall take appropriate action so as to prevent the reliance on the auditor's report. Now, third case is facts which become known to the auditor after the financial statements have been issued. Now, financial statements have already been issued. Now, in this case, what are you going to do as an auditor? First of all, you are going to see whether this fact, if it had been known to you at the date of your report, then would it have caused you to amend the report? If yes, then you will discuss the matter with the management. You are going to determine whether the financial statements need amendment. If not, then no problem. If yes, then you will inquire how the management is intending to address this matter in the financial statement. Now, if the management amends the financial statements, the auditor shall carry out the audit procedures which are necessary in the circumstances on the amendment. He will review the steps taken by the management to ensure that anyone in receipt of previously issued financial statement together with the auditor's report thereon is informed about the situation, that what has happened. Now, extend the audit procedures to the date of new auditor's report, and you will provide a new auditor's report on the amended financial statement. In the amended auditor's report, an EOM para referring to the notes to financial statement that discuss the reasons of amendment in the financial statement should also be included. EOM para is given as per which standard? As per SA 706. Now, specific inquiries to be made from the management whether new commitments, borrowings, guarantees have been entered into, क्योंकि आपकी क्या है ये liabilities which you have acquired. Next, whether sales or acquisition of assets have been occurred or are planned. ये assets acquired का case हो गया. Whether there have been increase in capital or issuance of debt instruments such as the issue of new shares or debentures or an agreement to merge or liquidate has been made or is planned. Whether any assets have been appropriated by the government or destroyed, for example, by fire, flood. Whether there have been any developments regarding the contingencies, whether any unusual accounting adjustments have been made or are contemplated, whether any events have occurred or are likely to occur that will bring into question the appropriateness of accounting policies which are used in the financial statements, as would be the case, for example, if such events call into question the validity of the going concern assumption, whether any events have occurred that are relevant to the measurement of estimates or provisions made in the financial statements, whether any events have occurred that one relevant to the recoverability of assets. So all these are specific inquiries that have to be made from the management. Why? Because there are going to be some indicators like whether there is any need or whether there are any events that can be considered as subsequent. Okay, so this is all about SA 560. We are done with it. After this, we are going to do SA 570. SA 570, going concern, basis of going concern, basis of accounting. So financial statements are prepared on the assumption that the entity is a going concern. We all know that, and will continue its operations for the foreseeable future. General purpose financial statements are prepared using the going concern basis of accounting unless the management either intends to liquidate the entity or to cease the operations or has no realistic alternative but to do so. ठीक है, स्पेशल पर्पस फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स मे और मे नॉट बी प्रिपेयर्ड इन अकॉर्डेंस विद द FRF. ठीक है, गोइंग कंसर्न रेलेवेंट हो भी सकता है और इरेलेवेंट भी हो सकता है. when the use of going concern basis of accounting is appropriate, assets and liabilities are recorded on the basis that the entity will be able to realize its assets and will be able to discharge its liabilities in the normal course of business. Okay. Now, what are going to be my audit procedures, that is the risk assessment procedures, and what are going to be the responses to the assessed risk? In this case, first of all, let's talk about the risk assessment procedures. The auditor will obtain the understanding of the events and conditions that may cast significant doubt over the appropriateness of the going concern basis of accounting. Now, auditor should inquire the management as to the period selected by the management for assessment of going concern, what period they have selected. Secondly, how management assess the appropriateness of going concern, what procedures do they apply. Third, factors considered by the management while the assessment was done. Auditor should remain alert throughout the audit for the evidences of events that may cast significant doubt on the entity's ability to continue as a going concern. For example, events can be financial in nature, operating, or others. Okay, we are going to talk about these events in detail later on. Let's talk about the responses. So situation 1, management has not assessed the appropriateness of going concern at all. Second situation can be the period which was selected by the management was a period which was less than 12 months, or there can be a situation 3, auditor identifies the event that cast significant doubt over the appropriateness of going concern basis of accounting. So all these 3 situations can be possible. Any of these 3 situations can be possible. So let's talk about the first situation, that is situation number 1. Management has not assessed the appropriateness of going concern. In this case, you are going to discuss with the management the basis on which the financial statements are prepared, because they have not at all assessed the appropriateness of going concern. So what is the basis that they have considered to prepare the financial statements? Ask them. Ask the management the basis on which the management intends to use the going concern basis. On the basis of such a discussion, auditor will determine the procedures to be performed in such situation. Second situation is period was selected by the management, but the period was less than 12 months. In this case, you are going to request the management to reassess the going concern for a minimum period of 12 months. If the management refuses to reassess the appropriateness of going concern on extended period, then the auditor should consider the effect of refusal over the auditor's report. Okay. Now, third situation can be auditor identifies some events that cast significant doubt over the appropriateness of going concern basis of accounting. In this case, he is going to perform some additional procedures, which I mentioned below. First of all, he is going to discuss with the management what are your future plans, and he will evaluate the viability and the feasibility of such plans. Secondly, he can evaluate the forecast of the cash flows. He can request the management to reassess the going concern assumption considering the events and conditions which are being identified by the auditor. Obtain the WR as to the future plans, study the minutes of meetings so as to find out the solutions which are discussed to overcome the problems. Review the mitigating factors which are discussed with the management, inquire the status of pending litigations. Okay. Now, last part is conclusion and reporting. So, based on the audit procedures performed and the audit evidence is collected, auditor is required to conclude as to the appropriateness of going concern basis of accounting, and he has to report accordingly. So, conclusion can be going concern inappropriately रखा है या फिर going concern assumption is appropriate. If it is inappropriate, कोई problem ही नहीं है, चुपचाप से adverse opinion दो, खत्म करो, right? चुपचाप से नहीं करोगे, obviously you will have to discuss, but हाँ ठीक है, directly inappropriate going concern assumption है, basis ही गलत ले रखा है, on which the financial statements should be prepared. तो प्रिंसिपल ही गलत है, तो यहाँ पर आपका सीधा क्या हो जाएगा, एडवर्स ओपिनियन. इन अदर केस दैट इज द गोइंग कंसर्न assumption is appropriate. यहाँ पर you will have to see whether there is any material uncertainty. If no material uncertainty exists, then good, unmodified opinion. But if there is material uncertainty, you will have to see whether appropriate disclosures are given in the financial statements or not. If the appropriate disclosures are given in the financial statements, unmodified opinion can be given, but you will have to give a separate section titled as materiality uncertainty relating to going concern. This will be done as per SC 700. Now, disclosures, exists some material uncertainty, but disclosures are not given, or the disclosures are given but they are inappropriately given. In this case, you are going to express a modified opinion which will depend upon the circumstances, whether qualified or adverse. You will have to see as per SC 705. Okay. Now, let's talk about the events that I was talking about. That can be financial events, operating or other. These are the events or conditions that cast doubt about the going concern assumption. Let's talk about the financial events first. First of all, net liability or the net current liability position. This is a financial indicator. Next, liability position आ रही है, मतलब assets नहीं है, liabilities are more, तो ये गलत इंडिकेटर हो गया. सेकेंड, फिक्स्ड टर्म बोरोइंग्स अप्रोचिंग मेच्योरिटी विदाउट रियलिस्टिक प्रोस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ रिन्यूअल और रीपेमेंट और एक्सेसिव रिलायंस ऑन शॉर्ट टर्म बोरोइंग्स टू फाइनेंस द लॉन्ग टर्म असेट्स. प्रिंसिपल ही गलत है भाई, यहाँ पर लॉजिक ही गलत है. नेक्स्ट, indications of withdrawal or financial support by the creditors. Creditors are not trusting you anymore. Next, negative operating cash flows indicated by historical or prospective financial statements. Negative operating cash flows. Adverse key financial ratios, bad indicator. Substantial operating losses or significant deterioration in the value of assets which are used to generate the cash flows. Cash flows जिस चीज़ से generate होते हैं वो ही losses में चल रहे हैं, deteriorate हो रहे हैं. arrears or discontinuance of the dividends, inability to pay the creditors on due dates, inability to comply with the terms of loans or agreements, change from credit to cash on delivery transactions with the suppliers. Suppliers are not trusting you anymore, they are not providing you credit. Inability to obtain financing for essential new product development or other essential investments. आप यहाँ पर कैसे याद रखोगे? अब फर्स्ट थिंग आप ऐसे बना सकते हो, क्रेडिटर्स का एक पॉइंट बना लो, एक बना लो पॉइंट कैश फ्लोज का. क्रेडिटर्स के अंदर सपोर्ट, COD और ड्यू डेट पेमेंट्स. आपको क्या चीज़ बोलते हैं, ड्यू डेट्स पर ही आप उनको पे नहीं कर पा रहे, एक पॉइंट आप ये बना सकते हो. सो देयर कैन बी 3 पॉइंट्स दैट यू कैन मेक फ्रॉम क्रेडिटर्स. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, दे आर नॉट प्रोवाइडिंग यू एनी सपोर्ट नाउ. सेकेंड इज COD ही मिल रहा है, क्रेडिट नहीं मिल रहा है. थर्ड पॉइंट इज ड्यू डेट पर आप पेमेंट नहीं कर पा रहे हो. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट, कैश फ्लो से रिलेटेड अगर मैं बात करूँ तो एक डिविडेंड से रिलेटेड पॉइंट है कि आप अब एरियर्स या फिर डिसकंटिन्यू कर रहे हो, डिविडेंड्स नहीं पे कर पा रहे हो. सेकेंड, आपके जो कैश फ्लोज हैं फ्रॉम दी ऑपरेटिंग एक्टिविटीज़ वो नहीं आ पा रहे हैं, नेगेटिव हैं, एडवर्स आपकी कैश फ्लोज चल रहे हैं, नेगेटिव ऑपरेटिंग कैश फ्लोज हैं. या थर्ड आप दे सकते हो नेट क्रेडिट लाइबिलिटी वाला पॉइंट, कैश फ्लो से रिलेटेड है कुछ कुछ. एडवर्स फाइनेंशियल रेशियोज का एक पॉइंट दे सकते हो आप यहाँ पर. तो आपको 6-7 पॉइंट 8 पॉइंट ऐसे आराम से याद हो जाएंगे, बहुत ईजी है. ठीक है, बाकी थोड़े बहुत और कर लेना, हो जाएगा आराम से. ठीक है. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट हमारे पास आ जाता है ऑपरेटिंग इवेंट्स कंडीशन से रिलेटेड. सो यहाँ पर फर्स्ट पॉइंट हमारे पास है मैनेजमेंट इंटेंशंस टू लिक्विडेट द एंटिटी और टू सीज द ऑपरेशंस. मैनेजमेंट का इंटेंशन क्या हो रहा है कि एंटिटी के ऑपरेशंस को सीज करना पड़ेगा, लिक्विडेट करना पड़ेगा. तो यहाँ पर गोइंग कंसर्न की बात ही खत्म हो गई. यहाँ पे इंटेंशन क्या जा रहा है, टुवर्ड्स क्लोजिंग डाउन, शट डाउन. तो यहाँ पर आपके क्या हो गया, गोइंग कंसर्न अजम्पशन फेल हो रही है. सेकेंड, लॉस ऑफ की मैनेजमेंट विदाउट रिप्लेसमेंट. आपका की मैनेजमेंट जा रहा है और आपको रिप्लेसमेंट भी नहीं मिल रही है. लॉस ऑफ अ मेजर मार्केट, की कस्टमर्स, फ्रेंचाइजी, लाइसेंसेस और प्रिंसिपल सप्लायर्स. अगर ये लोग नहीं होंगे तो आपका बिजनेस कैसे चलेगा, ऑपरेशंस कैसे चलेंगे, नहीं चल पाएंगे. नेक्स्ट, लेबर डिफिकल्टीज, काम ही नहीं हो पाएगा. शॉर्टेजेस ऑफ इंपॉर्टेंट सप्लाईज विच आर इंपॉर्टेंट टू क्रिएट द आउटपुट. एमरजेंस ऑफ द हाईली सक्सेसफुल कॉम्पिटिटर. ठीक है, ऑल दीज पॉइंट्स आर ऑपरेटिंग इवेंट्स और कंडीशंस. नेक्स्ट वी हैव अदर्स. Non-compliance with capital or other statutory requirements. You are not able to comply with the capital. We are not able to comply with the statutory requirements. कितने दिन चल पाएगा काम, नहीं चलेगा. Pending legal or regulatory proceedings against the entity that may, if successful, result in claims that the entity is unlikely to be able to satisfy. आपके ऊपर claims आ जाएंगे, आप उसको पे भी नहीं कर पाओगे. Changes in the law, regulation or government policy which is expected to adversely affect your entity. Uninsured or underinsured catastrophes when they occur. Catastrophes are the sudden events that causes great damage or suffering. So there are uninsured or underinsured events, sudden events that may cause a significant damage to your entity whenever they occur. Okay, so all these are what other events or conditions that may cast doubt over the going concern assumption, right? So this is all about SA 570, which is going concern. SA 580, written representation. What is the meaning of WR? So written statement which is provided by the management or the TCWG to the auditor. Why is it given? To confirm certain matters or to support other evidences. What is the nature of WR? It is considered as an audit evidence being a response to an inquiry which is made by the auditor to the management or the TCWG. However, it cannot be considered as a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence in relation to the information or matter which is contained in it. You cannot say that this is my sufficient and appropriate audit evidences and on the basis of this I have done my audit. No, you cannot say that. If the auditor frames his opinion solely on the basis of WR, it cannot be considered as the right approach. ऐसे तो आप audit करो मत, काम ही मत करो, हर चीज़ का WR management TCWG से ले लो और बोल दो मेरी ये opinion है on the basis of WR, this is my SAAE. Can you say that? No, you cannot. Okay. WR should be in the form of a formal letter which should be addressed to whom? Should be addressed to auditor because the inquiries were made by the auditor. Next, it should be dated near the date of the audit report. However, in no case, it should be dated after the date of audit report. Obviously, बात है. Next, it is to be taken with respect to management's responsibilities with respect to financial statements, matters covered under these standards, and matters on which auditor decides otherwise. Okay. Next, special situations. Auditor requests WR from the management. Management either provides the WR or it disagrees to provide. Now, let's say the management refuses you to provide the WR. In this case, you will discuss with the management. You will evaluate the reasons that they are giving for not providing the WR. Re-evaluate the integrity of the management. And at the end, if the management does not provide you with the WR and there is no reasonable reason, then definitely you should issue a disclaimer of opinion, because you don't see any chance to provide any opinion, because you have not gathered the evidences, you have not gathered the information. Okay. Next, management agrees to provide the WR. If the management is agreeing to provide you with the WR, then you will have to see whether this WR is reliable, whether it is not reliable, or whether the WR is doubtful. There can be three possible situations. Let's talk about the first one. If the WR is reliable, WR reliable है तो आप इसको as an audit evidence consider कर सकते हो. Second, if it's not reliable, then determine its if possible effect on the audit. Sufficient doubt exist करता है अगर management की integrity को लेकर, then disclaimer of opinion straight away. If the WR is doubtful, then you will inquire further to resolve your doubts. If doubts not resolved even after inquiry, then you will determine what is going to be the possible impact on my opinion. Okay, so this is what you are going to do as an auditor in the standard SA 580 which is written representation. बहुत छोटा सा स्टैंडर्ड है ये. हमने काफ़ी स्टैंडर्ड में इसका रेफरेंस देखा है जहाँ पर आपको लिखा होता है टेक WR फ्रॉम मैनेजमेंट TCWG, टेक WR फ्रॉम मैनेजमेंट TCWG. तो वहाँ पर इस चीज़ का रेलेवेंस आ जाता है कि वो कौन से स्टैंडर्ड में लिखा हुआ है. वो सब SA 580 में लिखा हुआ है. उसके अकॉर्डिंग यू आर गोइंग टू टेक द WRs and you are going to check whether it's reliable or not, whether the management has given it to you or not, whether it is doubtful or so and so. Okay, so this is all about SA 580 written representation.
I hope this video could help you in some way. If it did, please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Also, you can connect with me on a lot of social media platforms, links in the description box below. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and bye-bye.